The morning air felt cool and clean when Maya Brooks reached the training range. The sun was still low, and a thin line of light rested along the rooftops like a quiet ribbon. She parked, lifted her gear bag from the back seat, and paused for a moment with the strap in her hand. She could hear distant pops from a far lane where an early team was testing their sights. Brass rolled and clinked on concrete. A range officer called, "Line is cold." The place had its own music, metal and gravel and echo, and it always settled her nerves. Maya took a long breath, then walked toward the check-in table with calm, steady steps. Inside the sign-in tent, the volunteer clerk handed out scorecards. Her badge showed her full name, but he looked at it twice as if he had never seen her before. "Unit?" he asked, already reaching for another card. "Metro South," she said. He nodded but did not meet her eyes. That was fine. She did not come here to be seen. She came here to do the work. Rita, her partner, waved from the end of the table. "You made it," Rita said. "Traffic?" Maya smiled. "Same as always." They bumped fists, a small habit that always felt like a promise. "I know you, you know me, we do the job." Beyond the tent, people formed little clusters, each a small circle of laughter, gear tips, and bragging. The hotshot team from Tactical stood together in matching jackets. Two of them looked over at Maya and then leaned closer to each other. Their smiles were quick and private. She did not chase the meaning. She had seen that look before at the academy, at roll call, at her first precinct holiday party. There was nothing new there. The range stretched in neat lanes across a flat yard that smelled like oil and dust. Safety posters hung from a long fence: muzzle discipline, eye and ear protection, keep your finger off the trigger until ready to fire. Sergeant Cole, the event organizer, checked his clipboard and raised his voice. "Briefing in 10. Hydrate. Make sure your equipment is inspected. No exceptions." He had a tone that could quiet a sports arena without sounding angry. People drifted toward him. Maya and Rita found a spot near the front. Maya opened her case on a clean table and began her routine. She ran a dry cloth along the slide of her duty pistol. She checked the sights. She looked into the chamber and felt the frame with her fingertips as if it were a familiar page in a book she loved. She counted her magazines and tested each spring. Everything felt smooth and right. She placed her ear protection and glasses beside the case in a neat line and locked her phone in the small pouch sewn into the bag. One message from her mother showed on the lock screen: "Call me when you can. Proud of you." A small smile touched her mouth. She would call after. "Brooks," said a voice at her elbow. It was a senior officer from traffic who liked to offer advice no one asked for. "Watch that elbow lock when you get stressed. You'll pull left." He said it in a soft, almost friendly way, but his eyes were not kind. Maya nodded once. "Thanks, sir." She had learned a long time ago that a short answer ended most things. He studied her stance as if she were a rookie and then wandered on, calling similar tips to others. Rita rolled her eyes and lowered her voice. "He tells the sky to be blue." Maya laughed once. "Let the sky do what it does," she said. Sergeant Cole began the briefing. He reviewed the rules in a clear, steady list. "This competition is for training, pride in craft, and team building. Safety first. No coaching on the line. No comments during strings of fire. Everyone will complete the qualification round before the advanced scenarios. Moving targets and decision stages will come after lunch. Remember, judgment matters as much as accuracy. If anyone breaks a rule, you'll sit the rest out." He scanned the group, not missing the small smirk on one officer's face or the fixed stare of another. He did not call anyone out. He trusted the rules and the timers and the quiet watch of the range officers to speak for him. Maya listened with her hands in her pockets and her shoulders loose. She had a habit of rolling her weight over the balls of her feet and back to her heels when her mind raced. Today she kept still. She pictured the front sight in her mind. She pictured her breath drawing down her spine, slow and even. She pictured the trigger press going straight back, not down, or sideways or in a rush. The fundamentals lived in her muscle memory, but reviewing them in simple words steadied her. Around her, the small talk grew sharper. The tactical jackets joked about the trophies shelf at their unit. Someone said, "Let's see who can do more than talk." Another voice said, "We already know." When Maya turned to move to the ready area, she caught two officers glancing at her, then at her hands, then away. She did not hate them. She did not have room in her chest for that. She had room for breath counts, for side picture, for safety. She had room for her aunt's voice from years ago at a quiet public range on a Sunday morning, "See the little things. The little things make the big things." Her aunt had been a licensed security professional who never raised her voice, who never rushed, who never missed on a practice day. She had taught Maya to use the tool with respect, not pride. "Respect is steadier than pride," she would say. "Respect will hold when pride drops." That sentence lived in Maya like a foundation. The first relay posted to the line. They loaded and shot slow fire at 7 yards. The timer beeped, and the regular music of the range rose and fell. When the line went cold, targets came in. People cheered for friends, shook heads at flyers, made light jokes to soften nerves. A few looked at Maya the way people look at someone they expect to fail. She felt it like a weight pressing on a door that she refused to open. She checked her sights one more time and dry-fired once, the front sight steady, the trigger press clean. Then she reinserted the empty magazine, locked the case, and waited. A thin cloud slid across the sun, and the day shifted into brighter gray. The scoreboard posted early numbers. Tactical stood high, as expected. A name from records popped up in third, surprising a few. Maya's name had no score beside it yet, and some eyes seemed to rest on that blank space as if it already proved something. She ignored the board. "Front sight," she whispered, not bothering to hide the words. Rita heard and nodded. "Front sight," she said back, like a good luck charm that also happened to be true. "Second relay to the line," called the range officer. "Make sure your eyes and ears are on. Bring only what you need." Maya picked up her bag, walked to her lane, and set everything down with deliberate care. The concrete felt cool through the soles of her boots. The target in her lane was fresh, unmarked, a clean sheet with a small black center. Clean sheets never scared her. They were invitations, not threats. As she prepared to load, she heard, behind her, a whisper that was not very quiet. "Some people come for the photo." A light laugh followed. She closed the comment out like a door. She pressed a fresh magazine into place, racked the slide, and checked again. She watched the range officer's hands for the ready signal and then stared through the notch at the small front blade. The world narrowed into that simple line: front sight, breath in, press, follow through. Her mind offered a quick memory from the academy. Back then, she had taken the top score in a midterm qual and learned the cost of letting that fact live outside her own file. 3 classmates had acted friendly, then turned cold. A rumor had surfaced about easy lanes. She had not argued back. She had doubled down on quiet work. She had promised herself she would never beg anyone to see her. She would let her craft speak when it needed to, and she would live her life the rest of the time. The promise still held. The range officer raised his hand. "Load and make ready." Slides racked up and down the line, like a soft wave of metal. On the buzzer, 5 rounds, slow fire, 7 yards. The buzzer remained silent for now, but her heart rate rose anyway. She counted breath in for 4, hold for 1, out for 6. Her shoulders loosened. The weight in her hands felt right. The small wind brought a faint scent of cut grass from the field beyond the berm. For a second, the world felt wide and open. Then the buzzer sounded. She focused on the front sight and pressed the trigger straight back. The recoil rose and fell like a nod. She saw the front sight lift and return. She did not chase holes or try to read the target. She trusted the process. She pressed again, and again, until the string ended. "Cease fire," called the officer. Index finger off the trigger. Muzzle down range. She did each step with quiet care, not because she wanted praise, but because careful steps were how people stayed safe. They walked their targets back in. Maya did not crane her neck. She waited until the mechanical arm brought the paper fully home. Then she glanced up. 5 tight shapes sat just inside the center ring. She heard a quick exhale from the lane beside her. She said nothing. She reset, reloaded, and waited for the next string. The small comments in the air changed a little. They had a new note in them, thinner, uncertain, like someone had turned down the volume on certainty and no one had found the knob again. Between strings, Sergeant Cole moved behind the line with the quiet stride of someone who had spent years on ranges. He did not stop at Maya's lane, but his eyes paused on her target for half a second, and he gave the same small nod he gave anyone who did something well. Maya liked that about him. He did not overpraise or overcorrect. He treated craft like craft. The final warm-up string finished. "Unload and show clear," the officer called. "Holster. Hydrate." We moved to qualification in 15. The crowd grew louder again as people left the line. Some faces carried easy smiles. A few held tight jaws. One of the tactical shooters walked past Maya and glanced at her target, then at her hands, then at her eyes. He did not say anything. She did not offer anything. They passed like trains in a station, each on their own track. Rita met Maya by the gear tables with 2 bottles of water. "How are you feeling?" she asked. "Steady," Maya said. "How are you?" Rita made a face. "I'm trying to remember that breathing thing you showed me. 4 in, out for 6. My brain wants to count everything at once." "That's okay," Maya said. "Just make the out breath a little longer than the in breath. That slows the heart a bit. It's a small thing that helps." Rita took a long exhale on purpose and laughed at herself. "I look like I'm blowing out birthday candles." "Whatever works," Maya said, smiling. The loudspeaker crackled. "Competitors, report for safety check and lane assignments for qualification." People flowed toward the posted list. Names, lanes, times. Maya found hers quickly, lane 9. A good spot near the middle, with even light and less wind swirl. Someone behind her said, "Middle lanes make people look better." Another answered, "Only if they need it." She let the words pass through the air and drop. She would not pick them up. With her lane assignment in hand, she walked back to the ready point and checked her magazines again. She kept her movements smooth and unhurried. Hurried hands made mistakes. Mistakes made people unsafe. Safety was her real scoreboard, and she guarded it with care. She adjusted her ear protection and felt the soft pressure settle over her head, muting the world in a way she liked. The muffle made her breathing louder to her own ears. It also made her thoughts quieter. A light breeze pushed another thin cloud over the sun, and the range took on that bright gray tone again, steady and even. The yard felt like a page waiting for ink. "Qualification shooters to the line," the officer called. Maya stepped forward with the group, her boots tapping the concrete in the same slow rhythm she used for long runs. She stood at lane 9 and looked downrange. The target waited. She could feel the eyes behind her and to the sides, some friendly, some unsure, some ready to judge. It did not matter. The front sight was the same for everyone. Sergeant Cole's voice came over the speaker, firm and calm. Remember what we said at briefing. We are here to honor the craft. We are here to be safe. Do your work. Let the work speak. The words landed in the quiet like small stones in water, making circles that spread to the edges. Maya settled her stance, planted her feet, and let her breath slide in and out like the tide. She did not look left or right. The range officer raised his hand. Timers chimed to life up and down the line. Rita gave a tiny thumbs up 2 lanes over. The tactical jackets stood farther along, bodies loose, faces set. The scoreboard sat blank for this round, a clean field waiting for names and numbers. For a moment, everything held in balance: the gossip and the goodwill, the doubt and the discipline, the jokes and the rules. Then the officer lowered his hand, and the first buzzer of qualification sounded, sharp and bright, cutting the morning in two. The buzzer cut through the muffle of ear protection, and Maya moved like a clock that had been wound with care. She saw the front sight, not the whole target, and she pressed the trigger straight back. The recoil rose and fell in a small, familiar arc. She let the front sight lift and return. She did not chase holes. She did not think about the people behind her. She did not think about the scoreboard or the trophy or the jokes she overheard earlier. She kept her world small on purpose. Small worlds are steady worlds. She pressed again, and again, until the first string ended and the range officer's voice called, "Cease fire. Finger off the trigger. Muzzle down range." She indexed her finger, breathed out, and let the tension slip from her shoulders. "Stand by for next course," the officer said, walking the line with the even steps of someone who loved rules because rules kept people safe. A light wind moved across the yard and tugged at the paper edges downrange. The sun tried to come out from behind a thin cloud and then changed its mind. Maya adjusted her stance slightly, toes and knees in the same line, weight a touch forward. She checked the grip with a small squeeze, then relaxed. Her breath fell into the pattern she trusted: in for 4, hold for 1, out for 6. Rita, 2 lanes over, mimicked the rhythm and half smiled at herself for counting on her fingers. The small smile was good, it meant air was moving and panic had no place to land. Load and make ready. 10 yards. Controlled pairs on the buzzer. The voice came smooth and calm. Maya pressed a fresh magazine into place and tugged once to confirm it seated. She glanced at the front sight again, then closed her left eye just for a second to feel the picture, then opened both. She kept both eyes open when she shot, but she liked to check her focus this way. A hint of chatter rose behind the line and then quieted when the officer lifted his hand. The beep came. She pressed twice: press, reset, press. No slap, no rush, no fear of time. She let the front sight return like a needle back to center. The paper shook a little in the wind, but her timing and breathing were steady, and she moved only when she meant to move. A magazine hit the concrete a couple of lanes down, a loud clatter and a quick apology. Someone had fumbled a reload. A range officer stepped in, checked the position, and nodded. "Reset," he said gently. No one laughed. They had all dropped something once. Maya took note and reminded herself to keep her own movements smooth, never fast just for the sake of fast. Smooth is fast. She heard her aunt's voice in her head say the same old line: "Go slow enough to be perfect, and you will be fast enough." Cease fire. They waited with muzzles downrange and fingers high on the frame. The range officer walked past, watched hands, and gave a thumbs up for discipline. Maya liked the thumbs up more than words. It felt quiet, and quiet matched her. 15 yards. 5 rounds on the buzzer. The officer's hand lifted again. Down the line, she could feel a certain tight energy. 15 yards was the place where small mistakes grew big in a hurry, where elbow tension dragged shots off center, where people tried to steer the gun and made it worse. She checked the ground under her boots and planted her heels in a way that let the rest of her stay loose. The beep sounded, and she pressed in a rhythm that matched the steady beat of her own count. She let the front sight rise and fall like it was hanging from a tiny string. She did not try to fix anything mid-shot. She trusted the picture, pressed straight back, rode the reset, and finished clean. Unload and show clear. She locked the slide, looked into the chamber, and let a range officer see what she saw. The officer leaned, checked the empty chamber, and nodded. Holster. She did, with care. She wiped a light sheen of sweat from her temple and took a small drink of water. The plastic bottle felt thin and crinkled under her hand. She could smell hot brass and summer dust and a trace of oil that drifted like a memory across the firing line. When she looked up, she saw Sergeant Cole near the far end, talking with a volunteer scorekeeper. He had that steady face he used when he wanted the room to be calm. He looked once down the line, and his eyes touched each lane in turn, just checking, not judging. The next course combined distance changes and time pressure. People call it a walk back even when they don't literally walk. The targets move, and the times compress. Maya listened to the order, 3 rounds at 7 yards, then 3 at 10, then 3 at 15, each on its own beep. She nodded to herself. She liked how clear the plan sounded when it came from a voice you trusted. She loaded, checked the mag, and set her mind to the July 10, 15 rhythm. The beeps came in stages, and so did her presses. She found the center of the front sight blade, let it cut the black circle downrange, and kept her hands quiet while the gun did its work. Her forearms felt alive, but not tense. Her shoulders were a place for breath, not work. On the second stage, a voice behind the line tried a joke about photo day again, softer this time, like the speaker was less sure of the laugh. Maya did not chase it. She did not send her attention back there like a paper airplane that would only crash. She kept it downrange where the real work lived. When the third beep came for 15, she made sure she had a clean side picture and gave each press its own space, no pile-ups, no hurry now, fix later habits. Cease fire. She breathed out slowly until she felt the tiny tremor in her hands settle. A small gust pushed grit across the concrete, and the range smelled briefly like the road after a dry wind. The officers called a short pause for brass pickup and safety checks. People stepped back, stretched wrists, shook shoulders, compared notes with nods and airpen circles. Rita came over and wiggled her fingers. My hands think they're typing. Maya smiled. Tell them to write neat. Rita laughed, then sobered. You good? Good, Maya said. She did not add anything else. She did not need to. The steadiness in her chest said enough. They moved to a timed reload stage. The instructions were simple and serious: 2 rounds on the buzzer, reload from slide lock, 2 more. The point was clean mechanics under a little clock pressure, no flailing, no racing, just clear steps. Maya set her mags, checked her belt, and visualized the path: last shot, slide locks back, mag release, fresh mag in, rack or press the slide, back to sights. She pictured each step without speed and then let speed be the result of clean action. The buzzer sounded. She pressed twice, felt the slide lock, and let her thumb hit the release while her left hand lifted a fresh mag and seated it with a firm push. The slide moved forward with a short metallic sound. Back to sights. Press, press. 4 shots total, each one a decision, not a guess. When ceasefire came, she was already letting her shoulders drop, happy that nothing felt rushed and nothing felt sloppy. At the end of the first half of qualification, Sergeant Cole called a short break. Water. Shade. 10 minutes. He reminded everyone to keep muzzles pointed in a safe direction at all times, even when they were tired, and to keep fingers high on the frame unless they were actually shooting. He said it with the same calm he used in every sentence, and his calm worked better than a raised voice would have. People listened. People moved with more care. Maya sat on the end of a bench and cleaned a smudge from her glasses with the soft cloth from her kit. She looked at the world through clear lenses and felt a small lift in her chest. Clear is kind. Clear lets you make good choices. A couple of officers from Tactical walked past. One glanced at her case and then at the small notebook tucked beside it. "Do you actually take notes on a range day?" he asked, not unkindly, but with a puzzled tone. "Sometimes," Maya said. "Little things I want to remember." He nodded once as if that idea had not occurred to him before, then bumped his knuckles lightly against the bench in a silent thanks and kept walking. The second officer looked like he wanted to say something and then chose not to. Choices like that floated in the air on days like this. They were not victories or defeats. They were just small signs that the room might be changing in quiet ways. When the break ended, they returned to the line for the last stages of qualification. Low ready to first shot under time. This was about safe movement from a ready position, bringing the sights up without fishing for them, and delivering a clean first press. The instructor's voice came through the speakers, "Keep the muzzle downrange on the move to the line. When you raise to fire, meet the sights with your eyes, not your chin. You will have time if you do not waste time." Maya rolled that last sentence in her mind. It was a good sentence for more than the range. The beep sounded, and she brought the front sight into her view as if she were greeting an old friend. The press followed the picture by only a beat. She reset the trigger without slapping, then prepared for the next cycle. On her left, a shooter yanked the gun a little on the first press and muttered under his breath. He did not curse, just sighed, then corrected on the next run. The range officer gave a steady, neutral nod. Everyone got better when people were treated like adults who wanted to improve. They ran a failure to stop drill next, 2 to center, 1 to a smaller upper box. It tested judgment and sight shifts. Maya liked it because it demanded patience after speed. She pressed the first 2 in a rhythm, then paused, climbed her sights to the small box, and gave the third its own breath. She could feel the tiny muscles around her eyes working to hold focus. She felt the gun return to center with her hands staying quiet. When the string ended, she took another slow breath and let the feeling of the good sight shift sit in her mind so it would be there next time without effort. The final qualification stage before scoring was a simple one, and simple often feels hard when people get tired. 5 slow, perfect presses at a moderate distance. No timer. No reload. No tricks. Just craft. The range officer said, "Take your time. Do not waste your time." Maya thought of her aunt again, of calm Sunday mornings when they had the public range to themselves and the only sound was a farbird in a tree. She let that quiet memory sit next to the very real weight in her hands. Then she pressed once, and the press felt like a small promise kept. She pressed again, and it felt like the same promise kept a second time. By the 5th, she felt the same clean pull, the same return, the same finish. Unload and show clear. She did. Holster. She did. Step back from the line. She did. The range went cold. People exhaled in a way that meant more than breath, it meant first hill climbed. A couple of officers slapped each other on the shoulders. One shook his head and smiled at the sky like he was making a private deal with it to do better next time. Rita looked over and gave Maya a small nod that said, "You did your work." Maya returned the nod. Words were not needed yet. Now came the slow part that never felt slow enough, scorekeepers moving lane to lane, range staff checking targets, numbers being written, accidental tears in paper being taped, questions asked and answered. The world after a shoot always shifted in sound. Shots were gone, but the echo of them seemed to hang in the air for a while, like a bell that had been rung. Maya took a seat on the bench again, rolled her shoulders, and let her hands rest palms down on her thighs. She did not try to guess her numbers. She did not count holes in her mind. She stayed with the process that had brought her here: breathe, review one good habit she wanted to keep, drink water, keep her lane tidy. A young officer from records, red-cheeked and excited, sat down on the far end of the bench and blurted, "I didn't expect to like this. I'm more of a desk person." Then he laughed at himself. "But the part where you have to wait and then trust your hands. That surprised me." It felt calm. Maya nodded. "Calm is a tool," she said. "You can carry it anywhere." He looked at the ground and nodded like he might write that down if he had a pen. Across the yard, the scoreboard stood blank for the moment, waiting for the first numbers to appear. People drifted near it, then drifted away again, as if standing still made time move slower. Sergeant Cole raised a hand. "We'll post results for the qualification round in order. Please give staff room to work. We'll call advanced scenario briefs in 20 minutes. Hydrate. If you need a rest, take it now." His voice settled the crowd again. The small jokes and side comments softened. Even the bravado felt quieter. It is hard to brag in the face of clear rules and clean work. Maya looked at the target frames downrange, standing in a row like pages on a big wall. She remembered the academy rumor years ago and the promise she made to herself after it: let your craft speak when it needs to, and let your life speak the rest of the time. She felt the same promise now, steady and simple. She did not know what the paper would show when it came back. She knew what she had done, and that part was hers to keep. Rita tapped her shoulder. "Lunch after the scenarios." Maya smiled. "Deal." The wind shifted again and brought the smell of someone's coffee from the admin tent. It mixed with the clean scent of paper and oil and made the range feel less like a test and more like a workplace full of people doing something important. She liked that. She liked that the day, for all its pressure, still held small human things: water bottles, notes in a pocket, a joke about typing hands, a steady nod from a sergeant who cared. A staff member walked by with a stack of clipboards and gave everyone the same friendly reminder: eye and ear protection on even when you're not shooting. People reached for their gear without complaint. It was a small sign that the message of the day was landing: safety first, pride in craft, respect for the process. Maya put her glasses back on and felt the world click into focus, edges sharp again. When the first set of names and numbers finally began to appear on the board, the crowd moved in a slow wave, careful not to block each other, careful not to bump the scorekeeper's elbow. She did not hurry to join them. She would see what she needed to see when it was time. For now, she let herself enjoy one long, even breath that filled her lungs, eased her shoulders, and told her heart there was nothing to fear. Whatever the numbers were, she had done her work with care. The rest would follow. The crowd drifted toward the scoreboard like a tide that knew where to go. Names appeared line by line, numbers clicking into place under qualification. People leaned in, then leaned back to let others see. The murmur sounded like a library with a heartbeat. Maya stayed where she was for a minute longer, letting the moment breathe. She wiped a bit of dust from the toe of her boot and glanced downrange where the target frames stood quiet, as if they had turned into simple pieces of paper again and not the mirrors they had been a few minutes ago. When she finally stood, she did not rush. She walked with the same rhythm she used between strings of fire: steady, small steps, no sharp edges. She stopped 5 feet from the board, far enough to see without crowding anyone. Her name sat near the top. It looked plain, like any other name: no light around it, no arrow pointing, no loud color. The number beside it was clean and high. Rita's number was close and strong too. Several tactical jackets held places near the top as expected, but a couple had slipped lower than they liked. They hid their surprise well, but surprise has a shape, and Maya had learned to see it. She felt a quiet warmth in her chest that was not pride exactly. It was the feeling of a promise kept to yourself. She took one small breath, then stepped back to give others room. A young officer from records blinked at the board and turned to Maya with open wonder, like he had just seen a magic trick and knew it was not magic at all. "You did great," he said, voice low, like it was a private thing. "Thank you," she answered in the same gentle tone. A tactical shooter glanced over at Maya's line, then looked away, thoughtful. He seemed to be redoing some map in his head. People do that when a room changes. They redraw the paths, redraw who they believe stands where. Sergeant Cole's voice rose from the center of the yard. "Advanced scenario briefing in 5 minutes. Please gather at the cones. Bring eyes and ears. Bring an open mind." It was such a simple last line, but he meant it. The crowd shifted again, and the clusters broke apart and reformed around the bright orange markers that drew a half circle in front of the staging area. Maya stood in the second row. She liked to see and hear clearly, but she did not need to be the closest person to anything. Rita edged up beside her and bumped her elbow once, a small congratulations that did not demand a speech. The briefing board showed 3 scenarios. The first, moving targets with shoot and no-shoot panels that could flip mid-run. The second, low light with handheld light technique and clear identification rules. The third, a movement and cover stage with a timed reload and a decision shot at the end. Cole went through each one with simple language. "You will be evaluated on safety, judgment, and accuracy in that order. If you forget the order, remember this: a fast mistake is worse than a slow, clean choice. I'd rather see a perfect pass than a reckless win. Range officers have full authority to pause, correct, or stop any run. Treat their word like a red light." Maya listened with still hands. She pictured her aunt's voice saying, "See the little things." She pictured how a target panel might flip at the last second and how her finger would wait if the panel turned to a no-shoot. She pictured the beam of her light touching only what it needed to touch, not waving like a flag. She pictured her feet moving in short steps behind cover, not making wide, dramatic moves that looked good but wasted time. A plan formed without strain, like a sketch that drew itself. They started with the moving target stage. The target slid on rails behind a narrow slot in the berm, popping into view for only a second or two. Each carried a simple symbol: green shape for shoot, white shape for no shoot, and the symbols could switch at the last moment when a small flap flipped. The trick was not to chase the paper but to read what it told you and act only on that. 2 lanes ran side by side so pairs could go at once while staff watched from behind. Maya's relay lined up. She could feel the energy beside her, the half-ready bounce some shooters do, the small foot taps, the rolling of shoulders that looks like a warm-up but is really a conversation with nervousness. She did not bounce. She stood tall, shoulders soft, elbows ready but not locked. The range officer checked her gear and said a quiet good luck that was the same for everyone. The beep came. The first target slid out, green shape, clear as a leaf. She pressed twice with a low, even cadence, let the sight return, and then did not chase it as it slid away. The second target showed white at the last blink. She held. Her finger stayed high. The rail carried it back like a small secret she had refused to grab. The third came fast, green, then half turning to white. She was already off the trigger. She did not argue with the paper. She accepted the truth it showed and moved on. Beside her, a competitor fired one round after a flip and winced, knowing the penalty would land. The range officer made a small mark. No lectures, just a mark, and the run continued. Maya kept her rhythm through the rest. By the end, her heart was up but not wild, her breath steady enough to speak if she needed to. She did not speak. She cleared her lane, showed clear, and stepped away. One of the volunteers glanced at her page and said nothing, but his eyebrows made a small, surprised bridge that said plenty. Low light came next inside the training house, where daylight became a contained dim and the corners felt closer. A simple sign at the door read, "No muzzles past the threshold until range officer says go." People read it and nodded, and most read it twice. Cole had drilled this into people for years. Slow is smart when sight lines change. Inside, the stage used cardboard silhouettes with reflective strips where the shoot indicators lived. The no-shoot silhouettes wore armbands with reflective tape. You had to light, identify, decide, then fire or not. If you painted the whole room with light, you would blind yourself and lose time. Maya stood at the start box with her light in her support hand. She ran through the choices once in her head. The officer said, "On signal." The tone sounded, less sharp than the outside buzzer, more like a doorbell. She raised the light in a practiced index, left wrist locked, right hand ready without rushing, the beam steady and narrow. The first corner showed a no-shoot band on a silhouette and a shoot symbol farther back. She lit only what she needed, broke the shot, and let the light move like a pencil line, not a big brush. She did not chase anything. She let each corner become simple: show me, decide, act, move. At the halfway point, she heard someone outside laugh at a joke, faint through the wall, and she let the sound pass like traffic noise. Inside, the world was rules and quiet choices. At the last doorway, a reflective armband swung in the air on a pivot. That trick had gotten people before someone sees a flicker and thinks go. She let the beam touch it and see it clearly. Then she did not go. She shifted to the next lane of vision and finished with 2 clean presses on a valid symbol. When the range officer called end of course, she indexed, cleared, and felt a coolness in her chest that she loved, the coolness you feel after a series of right-sized decisions. She stepped into the sun and blinked as light filled her eyes again. The whole world looked overexposed for a second, then snapped back to normal. People compared notes in low voices outside the training house. No one bragged here, the low-light stage humbled everyone the same way, even the best. A tactical shooter raised his chin in Maya's direction, just a small gesture of respect across a few feet of air. It was not an apology. It did not need to be. She gave a tiny nod back. The third scenario set up on the longest bay. It used tall barrels and plywood walls to force angles and taught shooters to move their feet, not their arms, when they changed direction. A timed reload waited in the middle. At the end sat a small decision shot inside a box that punished rushes and rewarded patience. Cole reminded everyone, you cannot win on the reload, but you can lose there. Smooth, then smooth again. Maya viewed the layout like a map. Start box. 2 targets on the left, spaced so the sights must travel. 1 to the right around a barrel. Reload while moving to cover. 2 more through a narrow port. Final decision shot small and high. She closed her eyes once to picture it. When she opened them, she felt the ground under her feet like a friend. The officer's hand rose. The beep cut the quiet, and she stepped not far, just enough. Press, reset, press. A short pivot of hips to the right, not a swing. Press. Her slide locked back halfway to cover, right on schedule with her plan. Her thumb found the release as her left hand delivered the fresh magazine, seat, confirm, back to sights. The steps made a clean, soft drum on the concrete. Through the port, she used only the space she had and did not sweep her muzzle wide. For the last box, she paused a fraction longer than the clock demanded and gave the press the respect it deserved. The shot broke like a clean line drawn with a ruler. Cease fire. She breathed once, twice. Her hands felt light. A range officer checked her clear state and gave the thumbs up again, that quiet little sign that matched her. By now, the day had shifted into the part where the air feels warmer and people feel cooler, all used up in a good way. Water bottles emptied. The admin tent served simple sandwiches. Laughter rose in a more relaxed tone, without the sharp edge that had been there earlier. A few of the officers who had traded looks in the morning now avoided unnecessary comments. The room had not fully changed, but something had loosened. Rita handed Maya half a sandwich and sat on the bench with her. "You're doing exactly what you showed me on that practice day," Rita said. "Same breath, same steps, same patience. Same rules," Maya said. "Rules work even when people don't." Across the yard, the volunteer scorekeepers worked with pencils and clipboards, calm and organized. Sergeant Cole rotated between stations, answering questions with small nods and short sentences. Once he caught Maya's eye and gave the same neutral acknowledgement he gave to anyone who had done well in a stage. She liked him for that balance. Praise is useful, but fairness is a kind of food too, and people need it to stay strong. As the afternoon moved on, story fragments spread the way heat does from person to person, impossible to see but easy to feel. Someone said, "She held when the panel flipped." Someone else said, "She did not chase the light." Another voice added, "Her reload looked like it practiced itself." No one said these things in a showy way. They said them like notes from a class you wanted to remember later when you were alone. Maya heard bits of it and let them pass. She did not gather them, did not stack them into a tower to climb. She trusted what she had done and trusted that doing it again tomorrow would matter more than talking about it today. There was one small moment that would stay with her, though. As she refilled her magazines at a quiet table near the fence, the senior officer from traffic, the one who had given her the elbow tip earlier, stopped 2 paces away. He looked at her hands, then at the table, then at the ground. "Good runs," he said finally. The words were plain, like the name on the board. "Thank you," Maya answered. Neither of them filled the space with more. He nodded once and walked on. She did not dislike him. She did not offer him anything he did not ask for. Sometimes a simple, fair sentence is enough for one day. The advanced scenarios wound down. The last relays ran, the last timers chirped, the last brass rolled to a stop against small bumps in the concrete. The range officers called clear for the final time and stacked cones and gathered tape. A breeze came up from the far field and moved the thin flags on the perimeter fence. The sun stepped out fully now, late and bright, and made everything sharp. People packed cases with slower hands. The weight of the day had settled, not heavy, just present. Cole announced that scores would post shortly. He thanked the volunteers by name, the way he always did, and people clapped for them. The clapping felt good. It put attention where it belonged for a minute on the quiet workers who made the whole thing possible. Maya joined the applause and then checked her phone. A message from her mother waited. "Any snacks yet?" She smiled and typed back, "Sandwich. Water. Doing fine. Call after." When the board finally filled again, the yard went quiet the way a room does before a curtain rises. Places shifted, people moved closer, but not too close. Maya stood in the same spot as before, 5 feet back. She did not need to be in the front row to know what she had done. Still, knowing and seeing are different, and she let herself look when the numbers appeared. Her combined score took a step higher. The range had been a level table all day, and she had set down her work on it piece by piece. Now the table showed the whole puzzle put together. She felt a small warmth again, like a lamp turned on in a cool room. She held it for exactly 1 breath, then let it go. The day was not over. Cole had one more thing planned for the finalists, a short final stage to settle ties and give the top scores a last, clean test. It would be simple, he said, and because it was simple, it would be honest. Maya nodded as he spoke. She knew that sentence already. Simple tests tell the truth if you let them. She checked her gear once more and smoothed the page of her small notebook with her palm. She did not write anything now. She just held the paper flat and thought of her aunt's voice, of calm Sundays, of rules that kept people safe, of the way the front sight always looked the same no matter who stood on either side of you. Then she closed the notebook, met Rita's eyes, and stepped toward the line when her name was called, ready to let the work speak again. The final stage looked simple at first glance. A row of steel plates stood in a clean line at the far end of the bay, 3 large, 2 medium, 1 small that looked almost shy next to the others. To the right hung a hostage swinger, a cardboard target with a narrow scoring zone beside a larger no-shoot shape that could swing in front without warning. In the middle sat a single barrel to use for light cover. The rules were plain: start at low ready, engage the plates from largest to smallest, move to cover, perform a reload, and finish with 1 careful shot on the swinger when the safe zone opened. There was time on the clock, but not much. It was a test of order, patience, and nerve. Maya stood in the start box and let the picture settle in her mind. Large to small, then reload, then wait for the open slice and press once. She felt the ground under her boots, the calm weight of the pistol, the soft squeeze of ear protection against her head. She breathed in for 4, held for 1, and let the air out for 6. The yard sounds dropped away until all she heard was the small wind tugging at the flags on the fence. The range officer raised his hand, looked left and right, and gave the signal. The buzzer broke the quiet. She brought the sights to the first big plate and pressed. The sound of steel ringing came back a beat later like a confirmation. Next plate, press. Next, press. The large ones fell with a friendly clink. The medium plates wanted more care. She slowed a breath without slowing her hands and gave each one its own space. The last small plate asked for respect. She gave it a second of stillness and a clean press. The little circle swung back and then lay flat. No extra shots, no chase, no rush. She moved to the barrel in 3 short steps. Her slide locked back right where she wanted it to. Her left hand already had the fresh magazine, seat, confirm, back to sights. The world to her left and right did not exist now. Only the swinger existed. It hid the safe zone behind a larger no-shoot shape and then showed it again in a slow wave like a breath. She waited for the open slice to arrive under her front sight. She did not try to cheat the rhythm. When the window came, she pressed 1 careful shot that felt like a line drawn with a ruler. The cardboard jumped. "Cease fire," the officer called. She indexed her finger and let her shoulders drop. The stage had taken only seconds, but it had stretched time thin in the middle. Now the world snapped back and felt wide again. She cleared with the range officer and stepped out of the box. Her hands felt light. A volunteer scorekeeper raised an eyebrow and made a small note. He did not speak. He did not need to. The steel plates on her lane lay flat like a neat row of closed books, and the small hole on the swinger sat where it should, clean and centered in the safe zone. She gave the scorekeeper a small nod and moved away to reload her magazines for the next run. Even simple stages could ask more than 1 pass if ties had to be settled. 2 lanes over, a competitor chased a medium plate after a miss and then hurried the swinger. The no-shoot swung across at the last second. He held his shot in time and let out a sharp breath. The range officer's good hold sounded like a teacher's quiet praise. Another competitor dropped a magazine at her feet during the reload. It bounced once and landed on its base. She froze, looked to the officer, and waited. He guided her to clear, then restart. Her second run was clean. The lesson was obvious without anyone saying it: slow is kind when things go wrong. Slow gives you another chance. A thin cloud slid in front of the sun and made the steel look pale. The breeze picked up and made the top edges of the plates shiver a little. It did not matter. The plates did not care about weather or mood. They only cared about fundamentals. Maya liked that about them. She liked anything that answered to craft more than chatter. Cole walked down the line, hands behind his back, stopping every few lanes to watch. He did not hover. He did not look for drama. He looked for safety and for respect between people and the work. When he reached Maya's bay, he said nothing, just watched one full run from the side. When she cleared and stepped back, he gave the smallest nod. It was the same nod he gave to anyone who kept the lane safe and the shots honest. She did not need more. The next tiebreaker added a curve. Shooters would begin with the gun in the holster and hands at shoulder height. On the signal, they would draw, fire one clean shot on a small center square at 7 yards, then immediately transition to a one-hand string 3 shots strong hand only, then switch and fire 3 shots support hand only. The times would be tight, the shots would count double for any hit outside the box. It was simple. It was hard. Maya rolled her wrists to keep them loose and checked her grip pressure in the air, left thumb relaxed, right hand snug, shoulders soft. She settled into the start position and listened to the quiet under the nervous voices. The beep arrived like a tap on the shoulder. Her draw was not dramatic, it was tidy. She brought the sights up to meet her eyes, not the other way around, and let the first press follow the picture. The square accepted the shot. She shifted to strong hand only, set her elbow in a place that felt like home, and gave the next 3 a steady rhythm. The switch to support hand only was the real test. She let herself rest the grip for a fraction, took one longer breath, and pressed 3 times with care. Her front sight danced more than before, but she did not chase it. She let the return tell her when to act. When the string ended, she felt the small shake in her left forearm and smiled to herself. The shake was honest. The marks would tell the story. She cleared, holstered, and stepped back. The target came in. The small square showed a single, neat hole slightly high center. The strong hand shots formed a tight cluster. The support hand trio was wider but honest, still inside the scoring zone. A range officer tapped his pencil twice on the cardboard, the way some people clap softly. It was not praise. It was appreciation for work that respected the rules. While the next shooters took their turns, a small thing happened that would have been easy to miss. A phone rang behind the line, sudden and bright. The shooter on the line flinched, then froze. Maya watched him look to the range officer, who lifted a hand, paused the run, and waited for the phone to go quiet. No one scolded the person with the phone. The message was in the pause, safety and focus first. When the beep came again, the shooter started over, calmer. He finished with a clean set. As he walked off, he gave the officer a grateful nod. The officer nodded back. The little moment felt like the day in one short scene: stop, breathe, respect the work, then begin again. Rita's name came up 3 positions after Maya. Rita winked, shook out her hands, and stepped into the start box. Her first shot punched the square with a neat hole. Her strong hand string was smooth. The support hand drifted left and then came back in as she remembered to breathe. When she cleared, she looked at Maya and made a face that said, "I was thinking too much." Maya held up 3 fingers, 3 slow breaths, then pointed to Rita's chest as if to say, "Right here, slower." Rita nodded and let her shoulders drop. The next time she would remember. Between runs, small conversations formed and drifted away. A younger officer asked Maya, "How do you make it look slow even when it's fast?" She answered, "I decide before I move. The decision makes the movement look calm." He thought about that, then said, "So the calm is not a feeling first. It's a plan." She smiled. "Sometimes." He grinned like someone who had found a new tool on a shelf and could not wait to try it. Word of her clean stages had moved quietly across the yard. A few who had smirked in the morning now watched without comment. A rumor brushed the air near the benches: she had once competed on a state marksmanship team before joining the department. No details, just a simple sentence people said and then let go like a leaf in a stream. Maya did not start or spread it. If people asked, she would not brag. If they never asked, That would be fine too. What mattered was the work in front of her and the rules that guarded it. Another tie remained for second and third place, so the line kept moving. The sun stepped in and out from behind clouds, making the yard blink between warm gold and cool gray. Cole kept the pace even, neither rushed nor slow. The volunteers wrote numbers with steady hands. Someone passed around a small box of granola bars. The wrappers made a gentle crackle like dry leaves, and it made people laugh for no reason except that the hard part was almost over, and simple sounds felt friendly now. The last challenge Cole set for the finalists was the cleanest of the day. One single shot at a distant paper target with a narrow center line scored double. No timer. No reload. No movement. Just one breath, one picture, one press. "This is not about the clock," he said. "This is about telling yourself the truth. Take the time you need. Do not take the time you don't." People smiled at that, because they knew it meant everything and also nothing until you stood on the line. Maya stood on the mark and let the world shrink to the width of her front sight. She felt the small rise and fall of her chest. She let one breath go by without lifting the gun. On the next, she brought the pistol up, met the sights with her eyes, and waited for the picture to settle on the narrow line far away. She did not force it. She did not try to hold stiller than a human can hold. She let the movement soften until it felt like a tiny tide. At the bottom of that tide, she pressed. The gun lifted and came down. She did not take a second shot. She cleared, holstered, and stepped back. Only then did she look at the paper. A neat hole touched the center line like a fingertip on a thread. When Rita finished her own run, she leaned close and whispered, "I felt my pulse in my hand." Maya whispered back, "That's just your body saying it's alive. Let it talk. Then you talk last." Rita laughed under her breath and nodded. The advice was simple. The advice was enough. By late afternoon the air had that end-of-day feel, warm and a little tired. Brass lay in soft arcs near the firing lines. Scuffed footprints drew light gray half-moons on the concrete. The cones were stacked. The tape rolls were thin. Cole gathered the last score sheets and thanked the officers at each bay. He spoke the same way to everyone, steady and fair. The yard grew quiet in a respectful way, not solemn, just ready. Maya wiped her glasses one more time, not because they needed it, but because the small habit centered her. She placed her pistol in the case, double-checked the empty chamber, closed the lid, and set her hand on top for a second. The case felt warm from the sun. Across the yard, people stood in a loose half-circle near the scoreboard, leaving a wide gap for the staff. The final math took only minutes, but minutes can grow long when a whole day hangs from them. She did not push toward the front. She stood where she could see and let the space be. From somewhere behind her, a quiet voice said, "Whatever happens, that was good work." She did not turn to see who said it. She let the words land and stay. The scoreboard still showed earlier numbers. The last sheet of paper sat face down on a clipboard in Cole's hand. He looked out at the group, then at the volunteers, then at the board. He lifted the paper and gave it to the scorekeeper. The room seemed to hold a breath together, the way a wave gathers itself before it rolls to shore. Maya felt the day inside her like a simple song with few notes: breathe, see, press, clear, respect. She let the song keep time while the numbers were set in place. The shadows from the fence made a ladder on the ground at her feet. She stood on one rung and then the next as the sun moved and the moment stretched. She did not try to guess what the board would say. She did not rehearse faces or words. She simply waited with the same calm she had carried all day, the kind that does not ask for attention and does not need it. The scorekeeper taped the final sheet to the board with 2 quick motions. Paper met cork. Hands stepped away. The small crowd leaned in as one. The end of the day had arrived, and whatever it held would be what the work had earned. The paper rustled as the last sheet was pinned to the board. A hush fell across the range so quickly that even the flags on the fence seemed to pause. People leaned in. Names and numbers lined up in neat rows. For a heartbeat, no one spoke, as if the math might change if a voice broke the air. Then a small sound escaped from somewhere in the crowd, half breath, half laugh of surprise. The top line showed a simple fact in quiet print: Maya Brooks first overall. Right under it sat two smaller notes on a side column: Best Judgment Stage and Safety Commendation. Maya did not throw her hands up or shout. She did what she had done all day. She breathed. The warmth in her chest did not explode. It spread like sunlight coming through a window, slow and steady. She felt Rita's elbow touch hers, a soft bump full of joy. Rita whispered, "You did it," but the words felt too small for the moment, so she bumped her again and grinned instead. Maya returned the grin, then looked away from the board to the people around it, the faces that had been loud in the morning, the faces that had been kind, the faces that had been careful. Some eyes met hers with open respect. A few slid away and came back, learning a new map of the room. Sergeant Cole stepped forward, clipboard under one arm. His voice carried without effort. "Thank you, everyone. You trained hard today. You kept each other safe. You honored the craft. We have our results." He did not make a show of it. He read the acknowledgements in the same order he would have used no matter whose name filled the lines: third place, second place, special mentions for clean reloads and perfect holds on no shoots, and finally, first overall Officer Maya Brooks. Best Judgment Stage and Safety Commendation also to Officer Brooks for consistent discipline and clean decisions under pressure. The clapping started in one corner and then took the whole yard, not wild, just full. A few cheers slipped out. Someone let out one quick whistle and then stopped, remembering the tone of the day. Maya walked up when Cole called her name. He did not make her climb a platform or stand on a box. He offered his hand where he stood, eye to eye. "Well done," he said, plain and steady. His handshake was firm, the same pressure he used for everyone. He handed her a small certificate for the commendation and a simple medal that would hang on a peg in the training office until the end of the year. "Say a word," he asked. She paused, then nodded once. She turned to the group, not to the cameras in a volunteer's phone or the scoreboard behind her. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was clear but not loud. "I learned from good people. The rules help. The little things help. That is all." She looked back at Cole. "And thanks to the volunteers." She held up the certificate a little, not like a trophy, more like a note she planned to keep in a book. The clap rose again for the volunteers, which felt right, and the tightness in the yard loosened. As people drifted closer with handshakes and quick words, something small but important happened. The senior officer from traffic, the one who had offered advice at the start of the day, stepped forward. His mouth pressed into a line as if his words had to pass through a narrow door. "Good shooting," he said. Then, after a pause, he added, "Good judgment." He looked like a man telling the truth, even if he had a history with his own habits. Maya met his eyes. "Thank you," she replied. "No more, no less." He nodded, relieved by the plainness of it, and moved on. Two of the tactical shooters came by next. One gave a respectful nod, the other extended a hand. "You held when that flap flipped," he said. "I fired and knew I shouldn't have. That stuck with me." Maya nodded. "It happens," she said. "You'll hold next time." He smiled at the quiet faith in the sentence and walked away lighter. Rita bounced on her toes like she could not hold still. "We're getting lunch," she announced, as if she were chief of lunch. "And you are not paying." Maya laughed. "We'll split," she said. "We always split." Rita wrinkled her nose in fake protest and then gave in. Fine. But I'm picking the place. Cole gathered the finalists for a simple group photo, not a big banner, just a row of people with smudged hands and tired eyes and small, honest smiles. Maya stood in the middle only because that is where the gap opened. She did not think about where she should stand. She thought about keeping the day quiet and clear in her memory. After the photo, she helped a volunteer coil a long extension cord, because the cord would not coil itself, and because helping felt better than being looked at. As the yard thinned, a young officer approached with a notebook in his hand, the same kind Maya carried. He hesitated, then lifted the book a little. "Could I ask, what do you write?" She took a second to consider. "I write one small thing that worked," she said, "and one small thing to fix next time. Not more than that." He scribbled the sentence down, then added another question without saying it, "And today?" She understood. "Worked, patience. Fix, remember to drink water before I get thirsty." He laughed. "I can do that part." "Good," she said. "Start there." Near the gear tables, two officers who had made light jokes in the morning stood uncertainly, like people at the edge of a dock deciding whether to jump. When Maya passed, one of them said, "You were steady. I want to learn that." There was no flourish in his voice, only a plain want. She stopped. "Come to the extra practice day next week," she said. "We run fundamentals slow. We don't keep score. We build habits." He nodded as if that door had not been opened to him before and now stood wide. "I'll be there." Cole found Maya as she zipped her case. "I'm updating our training modules," he said. "I'd like your help. No big speeches. Just your eyes on the parts about decision shots and low light. You see details we need?" She nodded once. "Happy to help," she said. He smiled, the kind that begins in the eyes. "I thought you'd say that." By late afternoon, the range looked like it had never hosted a competition at all. Lanes cleared, cones stacked, tape gone, brass in buckets ready for recycling. The air smelled like dust and a little oil and victory without fireworks. Rita slung her bag over her shoulder and tipped her head toward the parking lot. Lunch. Lunch, Maya agreed. They chose a small diner not far from the station, the kind with a chalkboard menu and a bell on the door. The server brought water and said, "Long day." They both laughed, not because the question was funny, but because the answer was too big to fit in a sentence. They ordered sandwiches and shared fries. For the first time all day, Maya let her shoulders sink fully against a chair. The room hummed with the small sounds of forks and quiet talk. Rita replayed one of her own runs, lifting her hands to show where her sights had drifted, then laughed at herself for still thinking about it over lunch. "I need a hobby that is not counting breath," she joked. "Counting breath is not a bad hobby," Maya said, and they both grinned. Maya's phone buzzed. A message from her mother lit the screen. "Proud of you. Call if you can." Maya stepped outside to the small sidewalk and pressed call. Her mother answered on the first ring. "How'd it go?" she asked, though her voice already held the answer. "We did well," Maya said. She told her about the simple stages and the careful choices and the quiet nods. She did not list numbers. She spoke about small things: the sound of steel, the pause before a safe shot, the rule that says safety first every time. Her mother listened as if the range were a storybook and the rules were lines of a poem. "Your aunt would be smiling," her mother said at last. "Not the loud kind of smile. The steady kind." Maya looked down the street where sunlight soaked the curb and felt that same steady warmth. "I know," she said softly. When she went back inside, Rita had already asked for the check and tucked cash under the edge of the plate, because splitting the bill did not need to be math, it could be trust. "Community night tomorrow?" Rita asked. They sometimes helped at the youth center where officers and neighbors held a safety workshop. No demos, no drama, just talks about respect, listening, and what to do if you felt afraid. Yes, Maya said. Let's go. It felt right after a day like this to carry calm into a room where calm was a gift. Back at home that evening, Maya laid her gear out on a clean towel. She moved through her routine the way some people move through prayer. Unload and lock open. Check empty, check again. Wipe, light oil, wipe. She cleaned her glasses and set them beside the case. On her desk, she opened her small notebook. The page from the morning showed 3 short lines, front sight. Breath longer on the exhale. Respect before pride. She added 2 more, hold when the truth flips. Share what works. She closed the book and felt the soft weight of the day settle into place. Her phone buzzed again, this time a message from Cole with a handful of training slides attached and a note, "Look when you have time. Your comments will help." She smiled and wrote back, "We'll review tonight." Then she paused, set the phone down, and let herself take 10 quiet minutes without screens, just the open window and the sound of evening moving through the trees. Later, she opened the slides and read them like she read targets, slow and careful. On one, the wording for low light technique felt too general. She typed a simple change, keep the beam narrow. Light only what you need to see. Decide, then act. On another, she added a note under decision shots, if the panel turns to no shoot, honor that truth. A held shot is a clean shot. She saved her comments and sent them back with a short message, these might help new eyes. Cole replied with a thumbs up and one word, helpful. Before bed, she stood at the window and thought about the day in 5 pictures that would stay with her. The first, the cool morning light on the range and the sound of brass on concrete. The second, the small pause when a panel flipped and her finger stayed high. The third, the clean ring of steel dropping, one plate after another, like notes in order. The fourth, the yard clapping for volunteers, a simple sound with strong roots. The fifth, a scoreboard that did not shout, just told the truth in neat print. She also thought about the room in the morning, about glances and whispers and old habits. She did not try to make the day bigger than it was. One day cannot change a whole world. But one day can move a stone. One day can show a better map. One day can make the next day different. That was enough for now. Her alarm for tomorrow sat set on the nightstand. She had a regular shift in the morning, then an hour at the youth center in the evening, then, maybe, a quiet Sunday at the public range with her aunt if her aunt felt up to it, just to sit on the bench and listen to birds where once they had counted breath and watched front sight settle. She smiled at that thought, turned off the lamp, and lay down. Sleep came, steady and kind. The day did not replay in noisy flashes. It flowed like the breath she had counted all these hours, in and out, simple and real. In that easy dark, the lessons of the range folded into the rest of her life, see the little things, respect the rules that keep people safe, let your work speak, share what you learn, and carry calm where calm is needed. When the sun rose again, the medal would still hang at the training office, the certificate would still sit in her bag, the scoreboard would carry her name until the next competition. But more important than all of that, the people who had watched would remember how the day felt when care took the lead, how a room grows better when judgment is clean, voices are fair, and a simple, steady person lets her craft speak for her.